Hello everyone, welcome back. We're going to be doing a day after analysis after having shot two LPVOs, a 1-8 and a 1-10 at 300 and 500 yards. Okay, so the last time I shot at those distances, I got the impression that shooting the 10X was a lot more comfortable, right? But I didn't quite understand why, so I had to kind of go back and figure it out. Okay, so over here we got the primary arms 1-8 PLX on a 16-inch palmetto, and over here we got the primary arms 1-10 GLX on an 18-inch palmetto. Okay. So I set my targets up at both 300 and 500. Oh, actually it's the same target. I was just moving back. So I had these two targets side by side, and first I shot it at 300 yards. With the PLX and its max magnification, which is 8x. Okay, so at 8x, I took 5-shot group, and these are the ones with the circles here: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we got 4 shots here that are clustered together, and 1 off down here. The total group was 8.5 inches. I'm going to discard out of both of these. I'm going to discard the worst shot. Right. So we're going to look at the best 4 out of 5. Okay. So the best 4 out of 5 on the 8X was 5.5 inches at 300 yards. Okay, so 5.5 inches at 300 yards works out to a 1.8 MOA. Okay, so that was with the 1-8 PLX. Then I shot the 1-10 GLX at the 300 yards. So I did the same thing. I took 5 shots. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then the 5th one. On both of these, it looks like I pulled one down. So the total 5 shots here was 4.5 inches. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to discard the worst shot and look at the best 4 out of 5. So the best 4 out of 5 here was 4 inches. Okay. So that works at 300 yards. That works out to a 1.3 MOA. So the 8X gave me a 1.8 MOA. The 10X gave me a 1.3 MOA. So here's the thing. These two are close enough, okay, that, remember, over that kind of a distance, the wind can pick up. I'm going to call both of these a 1.5 MOA, okay, because I think if I shoot this enough, you're going to see some variation. I believe they're both going to average out to about 1.5 MOA, right? The fact that this one is 1.8 MOA and the other one's 1.3 MOA, that's an insignificant difference, okay, over 300 yards, okay? So both of these, 8X and 10X, I shot, let's call that 1.5 MOA. So then I moved back to 500 yards, right? At 500 yards, and first I shot the 1-8, okay? And we got 1, 2, 3, 4. The 5th one hit somewhere over here. And actually, at 500 yards, I didn't see the impact, but I saw the dust cloud off to the left over here. So I knew one shot went off to the left. So we're going to talk about why that happened in a minute. So the 4 that I shot here are the 4 that I got on the paper were 9 1/4 inches, right? So that over 500 yards, that works out to a 1.9 MOA. Okay. Same deal here. I shot the 1-10, 500 yards. This one's grouped higher. Okay. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4 on the paper. 5th one went up here somewhere. We'll talk about that in a minute. So the 4 shots that made it on the paper came out to 11 inches at 500 yards. That works out to a 2.2 MOA. Okay. So the 8X got us 1.9 MOA at 500 yards. The 10X got us 2.2 MOA at 500 yards. Again, same thing here. These two are close enough that if I shoot this a bunch of times and the wind's doing different things, sometimes I think I'll shoot better with one versus the other. I'm going to say that both of these shot about a 2 MOA. Okay, we can average both of these at 500 yards to a 2 MOA, okay? And I feel very comfortable calling it that, okay? So now let's go beyond this and analyze what's happening here. So first, when I shot the 300 yards, you'll notice that the groups off to the right a little bit, okay? And that's with both of these. So at 300 yards, I was off to the right. And the reason for that is because I forgot to adjust the windage on the scope for this specific ammunition I was shooting. I was shooting this on target 77 grain Sierra Match King. So I had originally zeroed this with Wolf WM 193, okay? And I know that when I go from that ammunition to this ammunition, this one basically impacts a little bit to the right. So I had to make a 1/2 mil adjustment to the left to get back to center, okay? So that's basically I forgot to make that adjustment for the ammunition. So that's why that's to the right and that's to the right. So I made my adjustments in the scope, which basically centered this, right? And then I went and I shot to 500 yards. Now, when I shot the 500 yards, okay, if you notice with the 1-8 LPVO, they impacted like at the right at almost the perfect elevation, right? So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, okay, but just one shot went to the left. Now, the reason why this was the perfect elevation is because this scope, this this is the 128 PLX Raptor, okay? So this doesn't have a mill grid. This has a bullet drop compensator, okay? So the lines on this aren't mill lines. They're specific. They're specific to the to 5.56. So that's why the elevation came in perfect. Now, the reason why one of the shots went off to the left, when I'm looking at that line, right? When I'm looking at the 500-yard mark on this bullet drop compensator in 8x, it looks like this, right? Not like this, really thin in 8x. And what's happening is the target is small and the line is thin. And what I was finding that it was hard to perfectly center this underneath the bullseye. I could kind of make out the bullseye. Now, if you notice, I had this gray. I could have put blue. I knew from my previous experience that the blue would stand out pretty good. So that's why I put gray to kind of make it a little bit harder, right, at that distance. So in 8x at 500 yards, I could see the bullseye well enough, and to center, like to know what my elevation here needed to be, right? So now it's a question of centering it, and the issue I was having is this being so thin and the target being so small, it was hard for me to center on the target. So what I think, instead of being here, I was probably like here somewhere, right? Just a little bit off to the left, and that's why this group, even after I made that adjustment for the ammunition, which I knew was like dead balls accurate right down the center, I still shot left because my hold was just a little bit off to the left, because I was unable to see, I was unable to judge the equal distance of the, on either side of the target. Okay, when I shot it in 10x, right? When I shot it at 10x, the line, now this has a mill grid, right? So I'm looking at at the 2 mil line, but in 10x, instead of seeing this, I saw that. Okay, it was a thicker line. So, and also the target itself was bigger. Okay, so now I'm seeing this on the bigger target, and I'm able to center this on the target. Again, I could see the bullseye. It's grayish on white, so it wasn't easy to see the bullseye, but I could see it. But I could definitely see the edges of the paper. I could see the edges of the line here, and I could center this, and that's why these 4 hits, 1, 2, 3, 4, are right down the center of the paper. Okay? There was I'm not gonna say that there was no wind, right? Because there's always wind, but it was a very light wind. Okay, and I think it was mostly pushing from behind, so that's why it actually went right down the center. So I was able to hold right in the middle, right, equal light on either side of the mill line I was using, and that gave me 4 hits right down the center. Now, if you notice, the impacts here are higher, right, and then the miss went up here. This one went to the left. We already discussed why, right, because I had the thinner thing and I was apparently holding a little bit to the left. This one went high here because on this one, I don't have a bullet drop compensator. I have mill lines, okay, and I'm basically using the 2 mil line, which I know is, I know it's pretty close to, to the 500 yard, what would be the 500 yard mark on the bullet drop compensator. So because it's not a dedicated bullet drop compensator, my group went a little bit high, and one of my shots went over the target. Okay, so so that explains why this one missed high, whereas this one missed left. Okay, so what I should have done here, I don't know if I could have done better with this, because on this one, again, thin line, really small target, really hard to center. I mean, I don't know if it's possible for me, right, with my eyes to do better, right? On this one over here, that was a mistake on me, right? Because I should have known that, hey, at 500 yards, my impacts, if I'm using that field line, at 500 yards, I'm going to be a little bit high. What I should have done is, instead of being here, I should have just like brought it down a little bit more, okay? And then I would have been able to center. So that is more of an error on my part, of not knowing what the proper hold is. Okay, so over here we can see the benefit of having a dedicated bullet drop compensator, right? Where your elevation, is going to be dead on, right? Whereas here, if you're using mill lines, you got to know. Now, for the most part, the mill lines do, like, the 2 mil line corresponds very closely to 400 yards, and the 3 mil line corresponds very closely to 500 yards, but it's not perfect. Okay, it's not perfect because it's not a bullet drop compensator. They're mill lines. Okay, so that's one of the things to be aware of. If you're picking a bullet drop compensator versus mill lines. Now, this bullet drop compensator is basically set to 5.56. What if you're shooting some different caliber? Now your bullet drop compensators may not work as well. Whereas with the mill lines, you're able to, okay, it doesn't matter. I mean, the mill lines, it doesn't matter what rifle you throw it on. In all cases, you just got to know what the proper holds are. Okay? So that's the difference between using a bullet drop compensator that's specific to a caliber versus using general mill lines that are standardized regardless of what caliber you're using. Okay? Now, so as far as the comfort, I told you guys, and I might have mentioned it in this video, but I know I've told you in prior videos, the 10X was more comfortable to shoot. And the reason why it was more comfortable is not just because the target is bigger, right? So I got a bigger target, but because the lines on the reticle are also bigger. Instead of seeing this, I'm seeing this. So I was able to, so the way these first focal plane scopes work is, when you zoom back, the reticle shrinks down, right? When you zoom in, the reticle blows up, right? It enlarges, and they have to find a balance point where if you're in a lower magnification, the lines aren't too thick, whereas if you're at a higher magnification, the lines aren't too thin. Okay, so I think my feeling is that this primary arms with their 1 to 10 GLX did a better job of finding that balance where the lines were in the max magnification, were better suited to being able to see it, like this at 500 yards as opposed to seeing it like this. Now, the other place where I saw a big difference is when I was doing my range estimating. I was testing out the range estimating. I knew what the distances were because I already had checked them on a rangefinder. But as far as using the auto ranging, okay, if you notice, the height of this paper is basically belt to head. Okay, so this is half the size of a man. So on this on the 1 to 8, all right, I have the M8 Raptor. The lines, right, for the auto ranging, it goes from 300 yards all the way out to 800 yards. Okay, so in order to achieve that, you got because you got 300, 400, 500, 600, 700, 800. The lines are really close to each other. Okay, so as I'm trying to auto range, confirm my, do my auto ranging on this half-size man over here, what I found is that the lines were really close together. and it was because you had that much information. You had that much information, right, from 300 yards all the way out to 800 yards, and it was kind of a little bit hard to see, right? So you might say that it's a case of too much information, right? But that would be rectified. Like let's say this only went up to 8 magnification. If this went up to 10 magnification, what happens is as you zoom in, things space out. So I think if you were able to go up to 10 magnification, this M8 Raptor, right, with the auto ranging part in this would have worked better because the lines would have spaced out more and it would have been easier to judge the distance. Okay. Now on this one over here, on the 1 to 10 GLX, it only went from 300 to 500, right? So you got 300, 400, 500, and you got the halves in between. But because they're only going from 300 to 500, the lines were further spaced apart. So it was easier to put the auto ranging on this and be able to quickly assess what distance this half-size man was at. And also because you're able to, so even if I was in 6X, right? If I've zoomed down to 6X, again, just because it's more spaced out, I could more easily, I could more quickly judge the distance. But when I went up to 10X, where this thing like really blew up, it was like, basically when I'm looking at the scope, it's like the distance between, let's say 300 and 400 on the lines was like 300 was like, I'm putting 300 here, okay? 400 was like way out here, okay? So you had a lot of distance between these two. Whereas on this one over here, on the M8, because the lines were so close together, right? If I'm looking, let's say at 400, let's say I'm lining up 400 here, well 300 was like right here, right? And then 500 was like right here. So the lines are just like so close to that it was hard to quickly assess which line matches up with the target. Now, like I said, that would be rectified if I had more magnification on this. So I think that the way that this M8 Raptor is set up, where it has auto ranging from 300 all the way out to 800 yards, I think that would definitely be better suited for an LPVO that, let's say, went up to 12 power. Okay, I know Adderall makes an LPVO that goes up to 12 power. I don't like the reticle in that, but I know they make it. If you could zoom up to like 10 or 12 power and the lines would space out more, I think it would become a lot more usable. Okay, whereas I think this, this 1 to 10 was like perfect with all the information on it. I didn't feel that it was too cluttered, which is not to say that, hey, having the extra auto ranging out to 800 yards is not useful. It's just that you need a scope with more magnification to be able to clearly see the lines when they're that close to each other. Okay? So I think that was an important thing that I sort of figured out this time around shooting at those, shooting at 500 yards. So every time I shoot these kind of distances with different scopes, I pick up some new things, some things that, I can see that they work better, or they work, again, like with the, I figured out why the 1 to 10 is easier than the 1 to 8. It's not just that the target here is smaller and the target here it's bigger, but the hold line that I'm using is also thinner here, right, in 8X versus it being thicker here in 10X, okay? Now, as far as error, with this one over here, with the line being thinner, the shot went off to the right over here, right? So people are basically tall, right? So if you're off to the right, that's going to be a miss, okay? With this one over here, right, because people are long, right? If you're off over here, right, because you're using, let's say, the mill grid, well, instead of getting a hit here, let's say that shot would have been up here, right? So your shot's going to go a little bit higher. If I was aiming center mass, because people are generally longer, you have a better chance of being off. If your hits are off height-wise, you still have a better chance of getting a hit versus if your hits are off, left and right, just because of the shape of people. Okay, so that's one of the things that became really apparent with the way I missed. So the shot that I missed here off to the left versus the shot that I missed here off to the over it, I think is a significant thing to consider as far as why you miss and and what type of a scope would help you best. Okay? So I think I kind of covered everything I wanted to cover. Let's just quickly talk about the thing I think mattered the most. Okay, moving back and forth over 500 yards. Weight. Okay, so this scope here this is the 1 to 8 PLX. This is the compact. So this is shorter. I think this is 9.5 inches. Yeah, 9.5 inches. With the mount, it comes out to I think like 1.5 pounds. The total rifle, which I weighed on the scale, comes out to 8 pounds 1 ounce. 8 pounds 1 ounce. And then when I measured this one over here, the 1 to 10 GLX. Okay, this is a very long scope. This is 12 inches. Okay, so with the mount, this comes out to I think something like 1 pound 8 ounces. I don't remember exactly, but the barrel here is 18-inch barrel. So when I weighed this thing weighed 8 pounds 9 ounces. Okay, so we're talking about an extra 8 ounces. 8 ounces of extra weight here, which was extremely tiring. Okay, you wouldn't believe how tiring those 8 ounces can get, especially when you're trying to get into different positions, right, and put magazines in, and you find yourself holding the gun one hand like this, and you got the weight at the far end over here. This gets a lot tiring. The 16-inch barrel was a lot easier to handle as I was moving back and forth over 500 yards trying to get into different positions. So, if we talked about the comfort, the comfort of shooting versus the practicality. In most cases, you're going to be running to get into position, right? And I think the lighter gun, lighter scope, lighter rifle is going to probably end up being a lot more useful. Okay. Now, if you're going to be probably more important, let's put it that way. If you're going to be in a stationary position, not moving around a lot, then yeah, the 1 to 10, the heavier scope, slightly longer barrel. I think that would be preferable if you're gonna be in a stationary position, not moving a whole lot. But anyway, I thought that was worth mentioning. That while I was shooting, right, like at the moment I was shooting, yes, I felt that the 1 to 10x was a lot more comfortable to shoot. I could see the bigger target, and I could see the reticle bigger on the target. Okay, but that only lasted for a short period of time. The majority of the time, I wasn't shooting; I was moving. I was going from one place to the other, and so for the majority of the time, which was moving, okay, I appreciated the lighter. The lighter setup a lot more. Okay, so something for you guys to think about. Drop some comments below. Let me know what you guys think, and I'll talk to you soon. I'm also going to include a scope playlist in the comments and in the description below, so you can click on it. You can see a whole bunch of scope and optics videos I've done. Hey everyone, I wanted to show you a side-by-side image of the two scopes through the scope camera. Okay, now first of all, let me say that the quality of the image that I see through the actual lens is better than what the camera can pick up. Okay, but that said, we're comparing apples and apples here because this is from the same camera. So on the left side, when you look at the at 8x in at 400 yards, okay, you can see how the target itself is small, and that 2 mil line, right? That's the 400 yard line, that first horizontal line. You can see how it, it's hard to judge how much light you have on either side of that line on the paper, so it can be really hard to center it perfectly. Hence that shot that went off to the left. Okay, now on the right side, you see in 10x, you see the target's bigger. You also see that the line is bigger, right? So you can see how it is easier to center that 2 mil line on the target, right? You can better judge equal light on both sides. Now, the other thing to pay attention to is the auto ranging lines to the right. You can see on the M8 that goes all the way out to 800 yards, those lines are really close to each other, and it's kind of hard to tell, even in its max magnification in 8x, what each of those lines means, okay, even in 8x. Like I said, normally when I'm looking at it with my eye, I can see it a little bit better, but it's still harder. But on the right side, in 10x, with the lines spaced further apart, it's really easy to see that, if you're at 400, if you can auto range at 400 yards or 500 yards. So this is this 1 to 10 GLX, the reticle that it has is much easier to work with. I want to talk briefly about the reticle with relation to 1X, right? CQB, moving and shooting. If you look on the right with that 1 to 10 GLX, that reticle design in 1X is a much better design because it has the combination of outer posts or leader lines, and then a 120 MO8 circle, right? So it's really hard to get on target. Those barrels are about the width of a man. Okay, if you look on the left with the M8 Raptor, now this is an older design. This has the outer posts, right, or the leader lines at the outer edges, but the inner circle is just a way too small to be useful. Okay, so this really needed an outer circle to help guide you to the center. So I mean, between these two reticle designs, I mean, there's absolutely no question, 100%. The reticle design of the 1 to 10 GLX is better than the 1 to 8 PLX that they have on the M8 design. So I'm hoping that they use this 1 to 10 reticle design in their future scopes.